This is the Scottish Club Rugby Podcast. The Scottish Club Rugby Podcast. With Stuart Cameron and Robin Purdy.
Hello and welcome to the second Scottish Club Rugby podcast of the season, looking at the top three divisions in Scottish Club Rugby, which means every week we'll be focusing on the 30 clubs from the Premiership and Nationals 1 and 2. And as you've heard, with me is Robin Purdy. And Robin, let's start by looking back at last week's fixtures. The Premiership kicked off with 5 games played. There were comfortable wins for Ayr over Glasgow Hawks and Currie, who came from behind to beat Selkirk, with some late scores to put the gloss on the scoreboard. Watsonians got past Kelso, Melrose were convincing winners over HERIOT'S, and at Mansfield Park, GHA continued their unbeaten run, which stretches over a year now, to beat Hawick, scoring 17 points to nothing in the second half to win that game. So what are your own takes on last Saturday?
Obviously, Ayr v Glasgow Hawks. Hawks have got the toughest assignment of the season out the way. I think they'll be happy enough of that. I didn't fancy them to get anything. They didn't get anything. Fancied Ayr to rack up a few tries as well most of the season, and they did that. So that was as predicted. Currie v Selkirk, again, fancied a home win there, Stuart. To be honest, I think Selkirk will be pleased enough to get a bonus point. I can see plenty of teams not coming away from Millennium Park this season with anything. Currie will be there or thereabouts come the end of the season, absolutely. Hawick, GHA, that's a great win for GHA, all credit to them. That's a really big statement, if you like. First game back in with the big dogs. Hawick, from the score lines that I seen coming in while I was commentating, Hawick looked to be in control of that at half time, and as you say, they'll be disappointed with 17 unanswered points shipped to GHA in the second half. Melrose v HERIOT'S, fancied Melrose, didn't see it being by that margin. Was hugely impressed by Melrose. We'll come on to that, no doubt. Not as impressed by HERIOT'S, but I think Melrose got them on the ideal time, or got them at the ideal time to get HERIOT'S. And Watsonians v Kelso, that was a game that could have went either way. Fancied Kelso to share it, so that looks like a good win for Watsonians. To me, a much changed Watsonians at that.
Let's jump into this week's Premiership matches then. Start with our commentary game at Philip Hawk with Selkirk taking on Watsonians. We can hear from Watsonians coach Mike Kerr, but first Selkirk head coach Sesh Henderson.
I guess this week can't really come quick enough for us. Pretty disappointed in some aspects of our game last week against Currie. We controlled the game for the first 10 minutes, 8-0 up, then 2 yellow cards and then 2 or 3 tries given away, quite cheaply. But look, we've got 4 tries, we've got a point, so we've got something out of the game, but we're still pretty honest with ourselves during the week in analysis, and we need to move forward pretty quickly. First home game at Watsonians is going to be pretty tough. They got a really good win at home against Kelso. It's a massive game for us. We want to try and get out there and put a bigger performance in to make sure we try and get a win at home in our first game. Selection wise, we hope to have Currie Tate available. Again, it's not finalised, just with a couple of knocks from last week as well. But we're really looking forward to this one. We'll try to get back on the bus and get playing again and pressurise the Watsons' defence and find space for our backs to operate on, because they did look on Saturday when they did get an opportunity that they're dangerous with ball in hand.
Selkirk are always a tough team to play down on their own patch. They really impressed me last year. Both times we played them and the games that I watched of them, they've got some good guys up front and they've got some really exciting guys in the backs. They like to play a real exciting brand of rugby. Play at the back a lot, little kicks through, lots of pressure on the ground. It'll be a really tough assignment for our guys. One we're looking forward to. Our sort of young team and inexperienced backline learnt a fair bit from Kelso, and the need to improve certain aspects such as our kicking game and our ability to stay within the sort of structure of what we're trying to do. So yeah, it will be another tough test, but one the guys are excited about, looking forward to, and they understand how hard it can be down there. But I think we'll be up for the challenge come Saturday. In terms of our team news, pretty settled pack from last week. Addition of Louis Ball, which is great for us and for the competition within the group. But other than that, it's fairly settled from the guys that did really well and got a lot of parity against Kelso and gave us a lot of good front foot ball at times. In the back line, we could be all changed to a degree. We lost Ronan Kerr quite early on Saturday, and we could be missing him for a few weeks, which isn't great. He's a real big player for us, adds a lot of experience, a lot of nous, and he's just a very good rugby player. So missing him at 13. So there could be a bit of a shuffle going on around the back line, one that we've not really decided yet. We've got the addition of Harry Fisher, who's back fit, which is good. It'll add a bit of competition. We've got Xander Walls back, again adding competition. But yeah, there could be a bit of a reshuffle in the back line. But we were really pleased with how, as I said before, our backs ran for such an inexperienced lot against Kelso. So we'll be looking to do a bit of the same, or much of the same, against Selkirk this weekend.
Selkirk at home for the first time this season. Watsonians targeting 2 out of 2.
Yeah, I think, as I said before, Watsonians will deem last weekend to have been a really good start. Bonus point win against a team that, let's not forget, last season caused them all kinds of problems, obviously. But it'll be a different challenge at Selkirk. Selkirk really strong at home last season, albeit Watsonians, a different looking Watsonians, went down there and chalked up a reasonably convincing win down at Philip Hall. But yeah, tough one to call this. Corey Tate, if he is back, will be massive for Selkirk. Selkirk, they got that point against Currie, the bonus point. Some teams won't get that, but they've got 2 yellows and you're going to ship points at Milani if you've got 2 yellows at the same time. Monroe Job being back in the Selkirk colours is a big fillip as well. Watsonians, I fancied Kelso to do okay up there, because Watsonians, there's no Baggett now, there's no Osley, Irvin Hess. That's a blow-up with Ronan Kerr. Mike's right, he's a really good player. But you look at their team sheet, they've still got Van Niekerk, still got Louis Ball, still got Loman McPherson, with a smattering of young lads that look like they've come in, and it would appear that there's been a wee bit of a bounce there potentially. Apparently the young number 8's a good player, he's one to keep an eye on. So tough one to call this, Stuart. If it had been at my side, I might have fancied Watsonians to share it, but I can see this being a high scoring affair.
Sesh, of course, delighted that you're going to be down there, because last season you were their lucky mascot.
Yeah, I've seen them a few times last season, and I think nigh on every time they won. Maybe the last time I seen them they didn't win, maybe, but yeah, I seen them win. I really enjoyed watching Selkirk last season. They've got a really exciting backline. They give it a bit of air. They were a fit team last season. They done well in the latter part of games, but it's all about getting at least parity up front, and that was one of the things that Selkirk did a lot of the times last season with Tate, with Fisher, and then unsung players like Taylor Wilson as well and Bruce Riddle. So yeah, should be a good game down there. Looking forward to it.
Prediction? Terrible to put you on the spot, but I will.
Narrow home win by virtue of the fact that Selkirk are at home.
Well, that's our come-to match tomorrow on Rugby Radio, starting at 2:30 all the way through until 5 o'clock. And don't forget, we now have a 7 o'clock programme, which is the Rugby Roundup show, where we go over all the results and tables, hear from players and coaches as well. So make a note of that. There'll be highlights on Borders Rugby TV tomorrow night, and also on Monday on ITV. Next up, GHA versus Melrose. Both got winning starts last weekend. Scott Wight is Melrose boss, but first a word from GHA head coach Calum Forrester.
We were obviously delighted with our opening day result last weekend down at Hawick. It's a tough place to go, so to come away with 5 points we were delighted with. But there was a lot of work-ons for us as well that we managed to go through and look at these and review on Tuesday night. Particularly I think our set piece, our line-out didn't function as smoothly as what it should done, and then just some of our attacking play just probably still a bit rusty, just in terms of where we're looking to line outside our 10 and our 12 when we're getting into our attacking shape. So plenty to work on. Team-wise, this weekend going into Melrose at home, the pack remains unchanged. So again, opportunity for these boys to kind of get rustiness out system with our line-outs and look to progress that. In the backs, we've got a couple of forced changes. Young Ben Curtis at scrum half picked up a knock at the weekend, so unfortunately he'll miss out, but it means experienced George Baird comes into the starting lineup, and Nicky Thompson in the centre as well also picked up a knock. So Michael Hughes returns to the squad this week straight in at 12. On our bench, we're rejoined by Ewen McCurdy. Joins the club again after an absence of a number of years. Ewen brings a lot of experience scrum half, and he comes back from Hong Kong, where he's been playing alongside other GHA stalwart Peter Juricevic out there, so look forward to getting him back in the mix this weekend. Looking ahead to Melrose, they obviously had a great result as well, so we'll need to be our best defensively. Got some exciting backs there this season, so really looking forward to our first game at Braytholme.
Week one, very, very good in terms of where we're at, in terms of we weren't sure what to expect, to be honest, having played, Jed, Peebles, we weren't sure if we're going to be a wee bit underkicked. That's not being personal, that's just in terms of the relative, in terms of, HERIOT'S coming off this great season last year, finishing second. But look, great bonus point win and a very good start to the season. And look, I would only call it a start. We've tried few new things in terms of attack shape and stuff, and it's coming. I think there's still more to come within the squad, but a very good start. And we head up to GHA this week. We'll be in a very much same situation, having come down to Mansfield Park, quite a difficult place to go in Scottish rugby, but to come down there and win with a bonus point to go back home, is a hugely successful day for them. And, it's their first game at home. They've obviously got a big hospitality lunch going on. It's their first game in the Premiership. So, they've got to be excited about that. So, we've got to go and, much the same as I said last year, it's just about the consistency of performance. So from our point of view, it's just making sure that we're consistent and we deliver on the basics like we done last week. And if we do that, I'm sure we'll have a chance, as I said last week. But boys are in a good place. We're heading up to there, unfortunately, without Finlay Sinclair. Finlay Sinclair got a bad injury in the first kind of 10 minutes of the game last week. So he's unfortunately broke his ankle and ruptured some ligaments in his ankle. So we won't be with Finlay Sinclair this week. Sam Derrick and Connor Spence aren't available either due to prior engaged commitments. So that creates an opportunity for a couple of guys to come into the squad. Looking forward to heading to Glasgow. Hopefully we can come away with a victory.
Melrose mightily impressive last Saturday in dismantling HERIOT'S, but GHA haven't lost for over a year now. They're at home, coming off the back of a win at Hawick. Confidence really high? Oh,
definitely. Confidence will be exceptionally high. They've got that winning thing going on. They were unbeaten last season in the league. That's a brilliant opening win at Mansfield. Any win at Mansfield's a brilliant win, and for a newly promoted team to go, to one of the most famous and, dare I say, daunting old grounds in the country, that's tremendous. So they will be absolutely buoyant. And what an occasion it's going to be. It's the first game back. One of the great names of Scottish club rugby, Melrose coming to town. I imagine it'll be a big crowd, big lunch, good atmosphere. Might be pretty partisan. So yeah, they can really look forward to this. Be another scalp, no two ways about it. If they could get a win against Melrose, but Melrose will also they will be bouncing up there after that performance against HERIOT'S. Number of players were absolutely sensational. The two Aussies in midfield had an absolute field day. Finn Douglas really brought something. He's in inverted commas new addition because he came through the system there, but he really brought something. Doug Crawford was awarded player of the match. He was really, really good. Rue Campbell did what Rue Campbell does, nicking line out balls, winning turnovers and just playing smart rugby. And a player that impresses me just more and more every time I see him is Rolly Brett. When you're at the Green Yards and you're in the commentary box, you get a really good vantage point looking down on proceedings. You can see players like him, you can literally see them running about with their head up. You can see them thinking about what they're going to do before they actually do it. He's got time on the ball, brings others into play brilliantly. He's got a good kicking game and he's slotted in seamlessly at 10. Played most of last season in the centres, but he was absolutely brilliant as well. So yeah, impressive forward platform. That those backs can run riot on. Sinclair, we wish him well. That was a blow. That was tough to see this early in the season, Stuart, to be honest, and obviously it's been a bad one. Derek was his replacement. Derek went really well. He's no longer around, but I think Xander McTaggart's training there at the moment, so he might come into the shake-up. So yeah, Melrose, strong pack, put themselves about, electric backline, be a great occasion there. Melrose to shade an away win.
Melrose to shade it, according to Robin. Next up is Glasgow Hawks versus Currie. Hawks had a difficult outing at Ayr last week. Currie put 55 points on Selkirk. Hawks at home. Currie travelling for the first time. We'll get the thoughts of both head coaches now. Mark Cairns of Currie. And first, from Glasgow Hawks, Phil Smith.
Quick update regarding this weekend. Another tough Saturday for us, playing the second game of the season against another top 4 team from last year. However, we took a bit of heart from last weekend regarding our general play, which is good, and we're trying to fix a few things regarding our set piece. So hopefully we'll give our home crowd and our home venue a good start to the season. We take on a good, settled Currie side.
I was really pleased with how we came through last week against Selkirk, and our second half performance has set a good bar for us to improve upon. The team is still to be decided for this weekend's fixture, but DJN has picked up an injury, so it is a doubt. And on a positive note, we have Alex Harley and Chris Henderson both available. Hog's fixtures have always been tough, especially away from home, and they've been close encounters. They might be disappointed to have come away from Millbrae with no points last week, but that didn't tell the story of the game. Hawks had long spells of possession, territory, and they played some really good rugby that wasn't always rewarded, partly due to errors, which I'm sure they'll be looking to improve on, and also the pressure the air defence put on them. But they almost got that 4-try bonus point, which shows how big a threat they can be in attack. And it will be a really good test for us because defence is a big focus area for us, and it's something we've been working hard to improve on. So good challenge for us after a good start, and looking forward to seeing Phil in his red and black as well.
Mark Cairns there, the Currie chief, and Phil Smith before that, wearing, as he says, the black and red of Glasgow Hawks. Now, we've been round to Glasgow Hawks several times in the past, and a tough nut to crack at home.
Yeah, I think they're a totally different proposition at home, sure, but their away form picked up last season as well. We've seen them be competitive away from home as well. And I think, if you can go to Melrose and score 3 tries, I think from a positivity point of view, that's a pretty good start, coupled with the fact that they've got that trip to Melrose over and done with for the season. Starts don't come any tougher than Ayr first up and Currie next up, of course. So, but again, they just get these tough assignments out the way early doors and then build from there. Currie, if Ennis is out, that's a blow. He's one of the best centres in the division, of course, but Harley coming in compensates for that to an extent. I heard Rhys Davis was a big player for them last weekend, but that's what Currie have got across the park. They've got, literally and metaphorically big players, big men, powerful men, but boys that can play rugby as well. And fancy Currie this season probably to be Ayr's biggest challengers, but we'll know more come 5 o'clock on Saturday, because if you're going to be a genuine threat to Ayr this season, then going to Hawks, come at the borders, winning games at those grounds, that's what you're going to have to do.
Match 4 in the Premiership is HERIOT'S versus Ayr at Golden Acre. It's a 4:45 kick-off as it's on BBC Alba. And looking ahead to this one are Ayr's head coach Grant Anderson and, first of all, HERIOT'S Bob McKillop.
Last week was a very, very disappointing result for us, and a disappointing performance too. No doubt in my mind that the best team won on the day. And there was a few ugly bounces. We know what the rugby ball can do, and there's 3 or 4 quite serious injuries for us during the game, which maybe boosted the scoreline a little bit against us, but absolutely no doubt in my mind that the best team won. But the best team won playing some really great rugby, massive credit to Melrose on transition and counter-attack. Showed their rugby pedigree and very, very clinical in their finishing. So I thought they were very impressive on the front foot. They've obviously recruited well, and I think that they will get stronger as the season goes on. As for ourselves, we've got quite a few guys injured, either from last year or from last week. So it's probably about a dozen first 15ers that are injured. And it's a tough challenge this week. It's the league's best and most consistent side coming to Golden Acre. But it's going to be a great day. We have Ayr first 15 and second 15 at Golden Acre, both on league duty. So a great opportunity for our young first and second 15s to have a crack at, very well organised Ayr team. So we're really looking forward to it. We are hopeful that Rory Leishman will be back and giving a bit more experience up front. Hopefully Jason Hill and Elliot Young will join him. And in the backs, Thomas Glendinning, formerly of Ayr, will come back into the back division after coming through what was in essence a fitness test at the Greenyards last week against Melrose Seconds. They'll be joined in the squad by Finlay Nielsen, ex of Strathclyde Uni and Glasgow Academy, who will make his debut at standoff. Another one of our young guns will feature off the bench at scrum half, and that'll be Struan Tallock. So no doubt we face a big challenge, but there's absolutely no doubt the excitement is building, and we really are looking forward to welcoming both Ayr teams to Golden Acre on Saturday.
Starting off with last weekend, I think I spoke after the game. It's probably a rusty reflection of where we were last week. We're probably lacking that kind of game intensity, just purely only having one pre-season game, just the way things unfolded. So there were certain elements of our game that I was pleased with, but there was also elements of it that I was a wee bit disappointed with. Some of our counter-attacking play, some of our decision-making at times just probably wasn't where I wanted to be. In terms of our planning at pre-season, I felt it was quite a safe performance from us. We picked that apart on Tuesday night. Don't get me wrong, I commended the boys on winning the game. We got 5 points. We scored, I think, 57 points, which is great. We were pleased, but again, internally, there was three or four of our targets that we look at that weren't even where we need them to be. So we had a good honest discussion on Tuesday night. The reaction to training was excellent, and I think the boys are keen to put on a proper performance which reflects us more as a group, I think is what I would say. So our attention turns to HERIOT'S on Saturday. Obviously Melrose had a fantastic result against HERIOT'S last weekend. However, I've watched that game. I genuinely don't believe that was an honest reflection of HERIOT'S either. I know they had guys missing for different reasons. Their captain wasn't playing. They have had a wee bit of transition with people leaving. And that's not to discredit Melrose. Melrose played very well in that game, and I've brought in some guys who you can see have had an impact and have had a good pre-season, and numbers have been good. I heard Whitey saying, but I think everybody watching that game knows that that's not HERIOT'S. So I'm sure we'll meet a far different HERIOT'S this Saturday at Golden Acre. A wee bit later kick-off, so we'll adjust to that, but I'm expecting them to want to put on a reaction as well, which is good. I think it's good. It's a good challenge, and it'll be different from last week because they play a slightly different type of game to Hawks, albeit a different game to ourselves. So we're looking forward to it. We, again, tidied up a few of the things that we weren't overly happy with. I'm sure HERIOT'S will have done the same. And yeah, it's a tough start to the season for us. I think we went Hogs last week, we've got HERIOT'S this week, we've got Melrose away, and given their performance last week will be a tough one. Then we have Currie at home and then Watsonians away. So starting the season off probably in a tough manner, but one that we're relishing, and we've set our stall out for what we want from those first 4, 5, 6 games. So hopefully we can push the performance on this week and get ourselves where we want to be for Saturday afternoon.
Well, as Grant said there, and you alluded to it last week on the programme as well, that's a tough start, isn't it, for Ayr? And if they get through that, then things will be a lot easier for them.
100%. I think I'm on record saying if they slip up in a couple of games, then we've got a league campaign, and if they win them all, having chalked off some of those assignments, then for me they're going to finish top, and then it's into the playoffs, or a home semi and probably a home final. So they're the benchmark. They absolutely are the benchmark. They have been for a while. They remain the benchmark. I agree with Grant. I don't think it'll be the same HERIOT'S that played against Melrose. As Bob alluded to there, injuries didn't help. The injuries that they've got prior to the game and the injuries that they had during the game. Flynn Thomas, the hooker, he was probably shaping up to be the best player of the day. He'd carried umpteen times before he departed with what looked like a sore one in the first half. But Dan King's to come back in. You mentioned Glendinning, he comes back in. Leishman, or they'll come in at some point anyway. Leishman will come back in. Sam Wallace will come back in. He's outstanding. Hill is still around. So it'll be sooner or later it's going to be a different HERIOT'S, and somebody somewhere will get the backlash from that Melrose performance. Will it be Ayr tomorrow? I don't think so, Stuart. I think Ayr are a cut above, and they did a number there last season. I think if we looked at this fixture pre-season, as BBC Alba obviously did, you're looking straight away when the fixtures come out, well, when's Ayr v HERIOT'S, both at Milbury and Golden Acre, and you're putting a ring round it. But yeah, I think with the changes that have been at HERIOT'S, it doesn't look that the massively tight mouth-watering counter that it maybe did pre-season. But that's not on Ayr. Ayr will go there and they'll be uber professional, and I can see them coming away with a bonus point win.
Well, the final game tomorrow is the big local derby between Kelso and Hawick at Mansfield Park. Kelso Director of Rugby is Neil Hinnigan. His comments in a moment, but first, Hawick head coach Graham Hogg.
After round one, we're pretty disappointed with the result against GHA at home last Saturday. After the first 40 minutes, as coaches, we were relatively happy, considering we'd went into the game massively undercooked. That's nobody else's fault bar ourselves. But then second half, we just fell to bits. I think there was a 10-15 minute spell just after the half where the inexperience of our group really, really showed. Boys will learn from that. We'll have to learn from that, especially with the trip to Pointer Park this week. It's certainly not a trip for the faint-hearted. It's somewhere we've had some really good battles over the last few years. And without looking backwards, last year's result at Pointer was one of the low points probably over the last couple of seasons. And boys are still hurting from that after conversations that have been had over the last few days. As I say, young, inexperienced group, but the boys have picked themselves up really, really well this week. I've been really happy with how the boys have trained and how they've bought into what we're trying to do, and we're really looking forward to going to Kelso and trying our best to get a positive result. Seems like I say the same thing every single week I'm on this podcast, but unfortunately we have picked up a couple of injuries. Kyle Brunton is unfortunately out for this week with a dead leg. There's some touch and go calls in other areas of the back line. But as I say, there's a fair few players knocking on the door and looking for their place in this starting 15, and looking forward to seeing how some of them go this week.
Hopefully a big home support there, vocal support to help us. Last weekend, a lot of inaccuracies. Things just didn't really go to plan. A few errors that were very costly. I know the players have taken a lot of ownership on this and they've looked to rectify it this week at training, so hopefully we can put that into practice on Saturday. We welcome a Hawick team that's a little bit wounded from last weekend's result. I think they'll come out firing and, obviously got a little bit to prove again, so we've got to be equally as hungry as that, and obviously we need to try and get our season up and running as well, so a lot to play for. Already a big match in this early in the season, but again we need to try and improve on last week and keep moving forward. Hopefully we can get 4 or 5 points that we desire and get the season fully up and running.
That's Neil Hinnigan, Director of Rugby at Kelso. Before that, Graham Hogg, Head Coach of Hawick. Both teams starting with a loss, as we mentioned earlier. This is pretty crucial.
You don't want to lose 3-4 games early in the piece and get cut adrift when there's only one team down. So I'm far from saying that this is a 5-pointer, of course, but both teams coming off what might be seen as disappointing results. Both absolutely will be looking to get a win. Hawick's squad has an inexperienced and young look about it now, and that's their credit as well, because they're promoting so much from within, and they're giving the only way to get these young bucks experience is to chuck them in at the deep end, and they sink or swim. But in the main, you'd like to think they'll come out as bigger and better players for it. But there's a lot of young lads in there, and it's a big old step up when you come from under 18s rugby. It's massive. So yeah, different look to Hawick from 2 years ago. Brunton out, of course, one of the most experienced campaigners. That is a blow. And Kelso, Neil's right, big crowd down there, one of the best places to be to watch club rugby on a Saturday afternoon. That will work in Kelso's favour. Comes with a wee bit of pressure, of course, but I can see Kelso coming through this one, Stuart.
OK, well, let's move into the national leagues now. National 1 is so unpredictable this year. First up tomorrow, Edinburgh Accies against Gala. Accies have dropped down from the Premiership. Gala comfortable all last season in the top half, but have had a mixed build-up with a good performance against Selkirk in the Border League, followed by defeat to Peebles a few days later. Let's hear from Gala Director of Rugby, Ewen Robbie.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to getting going with our league programme after 3 fixtures in the lead up, Northern, Selkirk and Peebles. Big thing for us this season will be looking for a consistency. We do have a young squad, but we played a very good game against a strong Selkirk side a couple of weeks ago, and then our performance probably dropped against Peebles, taking nothing away from them, but that's kind of what we were getting a wee bit last season. So we're looking to make strides on that. We're still trying to get a few kind of systems in place, philosophies with Dodsey and Ross Ford join us later on in our pre-season build-up. But that's a good, strong coaching setup that we've got in place now. And there's some great stuff getting done on the rugby paddock at training. Edinburgh Accies will be a tough start. We go Edinburgh Accies. I think we're playing teams from our old Premiership in the first few games of the season, and Stirling are popped in there as well for good measure. So just need to concentrate on ourselves. How do we get our game better? How do we improve individually? And then collectively we'll get out what we can. Just going back to Accies, they will be probably ambitious this season. I would think they like to play a lot of rugby. They will test us all about the park, so we'll have to be on our game defensively. And when we've got the ball, we've got to use it well and look after it and get our field positions and play off our systems, etc. Just on the player front, we do have a couple of injuries from the pre-season kind of warm-ups. Sam Smith's out with a shoulder injury. He should be probably maybe 4 or 5 weeks out. Gregor Collins he's still out from the Northern game. Hopefully he might only be out another three or so weeks. 2 really good players for us, but there's capable enough players coming in to replace them. So looking forward to getting the season going on a journey up to Rayburn Place, and we'll be doing our best, that's for sure.
Accies, of course, have lost a few players due to the fact that they were relegated and been snapped up by Premiership sides. The question will be, how have they recruited? And of course, it's all changed in terms of coaching as well. Ian Buthinson has stepped down. They're quite secretive over at Accies, actually. There's not a great deal on their Facebook page or their social media or their website. So Hugh Brown will be down with us. He'll be asking quite a few questions, I'd imagine, in the intro.
Oh, no doubt you'll be all over it, Will, Hugh. But there's the teams that came down. There's Accies, there's Marr, there's Musselburgh. Remain to be seen how much weaker or stronger there. Both are from last season, but Stirling in that division look to be, we'll come on to them, Stirling look to be the pre-season favourites, if you like. But Accies look strong enough, and it's a tough start for Gala. You mentioned Smith being out there. I'm a big admirer of Smith. I think he's an excellent player, so that's a wee bit of a blow. But Gala have got a bit of strength in there as well, and they've got a good youth system coming through. So by virtue of the fact that Accies are at home, they might shade it. But again, Gala, they get a relegated team out the way early doors. If I've got my hand on my heart, do I see Gala being the one team that goes up out of this division? I don't. I think there's other teams in there that are stronger. Gala probably looking at possibly a mid-table season. If when I'm looking at this now, they could absolutely prove me wrong. And let's not forget, they run Stirling really close last season at home. I was at that game. It was a brilliant game, and I was super impressed by Gala. So, if they can perform like that, particularly at home more often than not, then they'll be fine. But yeah, it's going to be a tough shift up there on Saturday.
Because I saw both their games against Selkirk in the Border League, which was at Netherdale, and the Peebles match as well. It was like chalk and cheese. They really actually played very well against Selkirk. It was just that 10-minute period where they leaked 3 tries when they were down to 14 men.
That wouldn't have been a game that they were fancied to win, playing a team from the Prem. Peebles are no mugs as well, let's be honest. Peebles were in the same division as Gala last season. So it's not a catastrophe, but yeah, absolutely, they would rather have won it.
Well, next up in National 1, it's Gordonians, the champions of National 2 last year, and they did it comfortably as well. They posted some early wins, and just as everyone thought they'd come back into the pack, they kept going. Fully deserved their promotion. They've got a home match against Glasgow Accies, and here's their coach and former player with Gordonians, Rory Riddle.
The whole Gordonians community is really excited to be back in National 1 after decades of absence now. We started pre-season 9 weeks ago, and the boys have worked incredibly hard to get to this point. So the 20 players selected will be raring to go come 3 p.m. on Saturday. It's always nice to start your campaign at home, and we get the opportunity to welcome last year's Scottish Cup finalists Glasgow Accies to Countess Wells. We have had some senior and key players either hang up the boots or relocate at the end of last season, but we worked hard and recruited quite well. Johnny Spence joins us from Aberdeen Grammar, and he'll bring a wealth of experience into the pack, while Jamie Stephen, the younger brother of Scotland under-20 hooker Seb, joins us from Sedbergh School. We'll also welcome a mix of local academy talent over the duration of the season, and that's something we're quite excited about as a club. There's no hiding from the fact that not only in this fixture, but over the course of the season, there will be a significant step up in levels across all facets of the game, but it's where this club deserves to be. And as a former player, I couldn't be prouder to be asked to lead this group of players in the next step of their journey. And everyone involved at the club is just chomping at the bit now to get stuck into this fixture on Saturday and into the season ahead.
Well, Robin, as Rory said there, it's a long time since Gordonians have been at this level, and they've overtaken the likes of Aberdeen Grammar, Highland and Dundee to become the region's top team. Fully deserved.
Oh, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. Stuart, they are top dogs, north of the Central Belt. Effectively, Grammar have slipped down, Dundee have slipped down, and you mentioned Highland there as well. So, they're I dare say they're an attractive proposition now for aspiring young players in what is a very big catchment area, or players that just want to play at the highest level in that geographical location. So, they won that division with a bit to spare impressively last season, and they won't be coming up to make up the numbers, Stuart, and it's a long old trip up there for some of these teams, Jed, Marr, Gala, especially long old trek. So same as always with a promoted team, get your home form, take a few scalps at home and see what happens in the free hits away from home. But there'll be some teams in the division, when you look at the strength at the top of the division, there'll be some other teams in the division, or fans of some of the other teams in the division will be looking at Gordonians early doors and going, how good or bad are Gordonians? Because that might have a massive impact on what happens to our club this season.
It's going to be very, very interesting indeed. I still have great memories of one of their most famous players, Ian McRae, who made history in world rugby, and you're going to tell me why?
I'm not. No, I'm not.
He is the first person ever to be used as a substitute in international rugby when he came on for Gordon Connell. Can't remember which game it was, but Gordon Connell, of course, sadly died a couple of weeks ago, aged 80, and he was a scrum half from Trinity Academicals, and he was the first cap from Trinity Academy as well, which of course is my old school, which is how I got into rugby in the first place. So there's your link.
Yeah, and which is why I've heard that from you. And you maybe been spending a bit too much time with Stuart McFarlane, maintaining information like that as well. But what I ordered for Glasgow Accies as well. Really impressed by them last season. They really brought something to the table. Looks like there's a good thing going on there. Ryan Grant, Rory Jackson, they'll be looking to stake a claim as well with the Stirlings, with the Edinburgh Accies and the Marrs, and if they can go up there, Gordonians chalk that one off early doors in the season and come away with a win, I think that'll be I think they'll be delighted with that. And I think if Gordonians can beat a team like Glasgow Accies, who performed so admirably last season, then that's a brilliant victory for Gordonians as well. Away win, but not by much.
Well, next it's Jed-Forest versus Marr, and these clubs have had some wild tussles over the years, both on and of course off the pitch as well. And on Tuesday I popped down for a chat with the new Jed head coach, Michael Harshaw, and here's an excerpt from that. So Michael, first of all, congratulations, the new head coach of Jed-Forest. A lot of history obviously in this club. You must be very proud.
Very much so. Obviously there's, as you say, there's a lot of history here. There's been plenty of good players produced out of the club. I think it's just for us now to have a look and see what we can do with the players that we have here, to try and start making our own history probably for the next few years. I'm not sure it's going to happen immediately, but probably a long-term project for us to see if we can get the club back on an even keel and get them going again. So.
Because you're really starting with a blank sheet of paper, aren't you?
We are in a way. I mean, there's a lot of players there still from last year, and there's a few more players coming up from the Thistle. There's quite a lot of stuff that we know about what we've got. There's probably a lot more unknowns about what's going to be happening in the league and some of the teams and changes. Obviously Gordonians are up. There's been a lot of changes in other clubs, just transitions of coaches and teams, players that are available for other clubs. So yeah, there's a lot of unknowns for us, but we're just going to stick with what we know with ourselves and see what we can get out of the season.
Tell us all about your own kind of journey towards here as head coach.
Came over from Northern Ireland 4 years ago to take on the development officer role. Spent a lot of time in Ulster, mainly at my home club, a little bit in All Ireland League with Ballymena, and probably representative stuff with Ulster under 21s and Ulster A, and spent a lot of time coaching in school and with some of the youth setups in Ulster as well. So saw the job advertised in Jed and went for it, and that's me, been here 4 years now. That's kind of natural transition to come in and look after the first 15 now as well. So.
And it's good as well because there'll be a lot of youngsters coming up tasting first 15 rugby for the very first time.
I think 6 players last season who came up. We've got another 4 coming in this season, so if we can keep that flow of players going, I think that's one of our main objectives, is to keep the players coming from the Thistle through to Jed-Forest. And just, I suppose, myself and Donald, having worked with them for the last 3 or 4 years, is hopefully making a bit of an easier transition for them coming in to Jed-Forest here, which has maybe been an issue in the past. So hopefully we can smooth that journey for them and keep them involved as much as possible.
Because you mentioned Donald Grieve, of course. Certainly people will be looking up at him.
Of course, I think he's over 300 caps. He's won sevens tournaments. He's got all the accolades there, and the boys certainly have worked with him at Thistle with a lot of respect. And you can see there's still some players in the first 15 who have played with them previously. So you can just see from the very start they've got that same level of respect. I think that's been our main aim for myself and Donald, is bringing in other coaches that we can have that level of respect. We're looking at people with a history with Jed, people who've got that rugby IQ, also who are good characters, so people who can pull together a changing room, and that's what we're looking for out of the coaching team really. There's nobody with egos, we're just all working towards a goal, and that's just helping our players develop and try and get the best out of our team during the season.
Now last season, of course, Jed finished at about mid-table. You're never really in a great deal of danger. It was certainly a better season than the one previously when you were obviously relegated. What's the remit then for this year?
I think our focus is probably a bit less on league position this season. Obviously last year with the 3 teams going down, there's probably pressure from the very start because of that. I think we're probably a little bit more looking at taking the pressure away from the players, been a bit more relaxed and just trying to get a flow to how we're playing. Obviously, nobody wants to go down, but with only one team going down, I think it just gives a little bit of breathing space, and we can actually work to develop the players and develop a game plan that suits us. Obviously, we've only been in position a few weeks, so this weekend might be early for us. We're not really going to let that affect us too much if it doesn't go our way. We're just keeping an eye on our goals and keep working towards them.
You do start off, though, against Marr, and I remember a few ding-dongs between Marr and Jed-Forest in National 1 in previous years. Obviously, the personnel have changed, apart from the young twins, of course, who are going to be here forever, I think. And, you know, it's always a great match between you two.
Well, that's the thing. I think there's plenty of history. There's boys are always saying that we never end up getting away from Marr. They always end up in the same league, so I don't think it's been more than a season that they've been apart. So yeah, look, obviously there's loads of history there. The guys kind of know what to expect. It'll be ultra physical game, and it's just whether we can stamp our authority in the game to allow us to play. Fairly confident in having weapons there and attack. Really, for us, it's whether we can front up. If we're physical enough and can produce enough ball, then we'll see what happens. If we do that, I think we'll at least score tries, and so we'll see if that's enough for us.
And that's the thing about Jed, you always score tries.
Yeah, I mean, even a couple of weeks ago, we took a bit of pummeling from Melrose, but we've still got 4 tries against them. So, you know, we probably didn't have out everybody who we could have out, but the boys who played that day really stuck in. It was a tough test. But yeah, as I say, we scored 4 tries, and when we look back at the video, like, we had opportunities to score a few more as well. I think it was just a bit of lack of confidence in terms of playing with a bit more width. There was certainly space there for us to go for, and that's something we've been working on the last couple of weeks, is just to build some confidence in going for those opportunities.
And in charge of Marr still is Kenny Diffenthal, who knows what it's like to play Jed at Riverside Park.
Yeah, Saturday's game, what a way to open your league campaign. An away game to Jed. We're under no illusions on how tough this is going to be, but the boys have prepped well. We've had a long pre-season, worked very hard. So yes, looking forward to the challenge ahead. With all the new faces at the club, I think everybody at the club will share my sentiments and thinking we're excited to get underway, to see where we are and how we get on. Really looking forward to it.
Kenny Diffenthal, and before that we heard from the new head coach at Jed, Michael Harshaw.
Well, first up, didn't Mike speak well? He's going to bring something this season to our coverage on our podcast, clearly. So yeah, I think him being in that role is deserved. By all accounts, he's done some great work since he arrived 4 years ago, so congratulations to him first of all. Yeah, no love lost in recent times between these two protagonists, and that's good. It's a good modern rivalry. You know, who would have thought it? A team from Troon and Jed, you know, a big geographical distance, but like I say, it's a rivalry that's developed. Jed, again, a lot of young guys there. It looked when they played Melrose that they had to draft a few in, but it looks all of a sudden like there's more bodies there. So much will rest on the shoulders of top performers, Skeldon, Finn Scott, Gary Young, the twins, you know, experienced campaigners, Robbie Shearer-Gibb in there as well. But I think in the last week or so, there's been a masterstroke at Jed, and that's to bring into the coaching setup in one capacity or another Ross Goodfellow, Gary Hill and Cookie. Now, they bring rugby IQ, as Mike referred to, and all the rest of it, and their passion, and that, you know, they are Jed men through and through. But they're the type of guys that if your playing squad's just starting to look a wee bit thin, and maybe guys are getting a wee bit disinterested in the winter if they've lost a few games, those are the types of guys that on a Monday night or a Tuesday night, if they call somebody up and say, look, can you come help us out? Nobody's got to say no to them. It's a bit like Whitey, to be honest. If Whitey asks you to do something, you know, he puts your arm around you, he gives you the chat, you're going to go do it. And I think it'll be the same with the likes of Ross and the likes of Hilly and Cookie there. So I think that's a bit of a masterstroke by Jed, because, you know, they're not going to have the strongest squad in the division in their time. You know, there's been times in recent seasons where they've maybe even struggled to get a full quota of boys out. So I think that's been a brilliant move. And Marr as well, they'll have had a high turnover. They have lost a few, you know, we know guys that have retired. I think, you know, a couple of guys that went to Hawks. I've seen Brandon Sweet is there, but they'll still have a strong squad. They've got a good setup down there with Marr College and whatnot. It's a long trip for them, first day of the season, but a really, really tough one to call, and you're going to ask me for a prediction. And the home factor to come into it again, and Jed to share it, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if Marr win this one either, Stuart. Too tough to call.
Musselburgh versus Biggar, another relegated team taking on Biggar, who always promise so much each season. Stony Hill is the venue. They'll be going out for a home win, but can Biggar spoil the party? Well, Biggar head coach, as usual, is Craig Borthwick.
We've had a really good pre-season, and the numbers have been fantastic. The boys have worked really hard. You know, I think there was a big difference from obviously last year when I started off with the boys. Me and Jason had to strip everything back, and we wanted to do things our way. So we changed everything. We started from the bottom and obviously built the boys up. We knew everything, which again obviously comes with its own problems that we're maybe behind a wee bit when the season starts, because we've had that much learning to do throughout obviously the pre-season time. But I think obviously going in this time we're using a good lump of the same stuff. We've not quite had to strip it back and go from the beginning again, which has helped us. I feel that we're probably ahead of where we were last season, sort of with learning and obviously our rugby terms, and I think boys are showing up really well. We've had 3 actually very tough pre-season games, challenged it obviously ourselves against Ayr. They come down and obviously put a lot of points on us, but I think, you know, if you look past the scoreline at the end of the day, there was a lot of really positive things to take out of that. We played a good lump of our second team boys for a big majority of that game, and so they got an exposure to a level of rugby that they'll probably not experience. So that was really positive for those boys, and obviously boys that are going to be involved in a first 15, that they got coached on the pitch by a lot of guys that are at the top end of Scottish amateur rugby. So, you know, it was a really positive game. We then went on to play Stirling, which was a good tough encounter again, and we came on again and obviously finished up against Penrith last weekend, and you know, it was a really close game and two sides that wanted to play rugby. So now we're in a good place. So hopefully if we can get started the way we finished the season, then I think we'll get off and get going well. But it's all down to the boys now. We've set them up and got them really fit, so it's we'll see how we come out against Musselburgh on Saturday. In terms of players that have come in, we've recruited actually quite well. Stewart brothers have come back from Glasgow Hawks, obviously Matty and Lewis, which will bring a massive amount of experience to us. The boys have been obviously playing at Glasgow Hawks for a good number of years now, and they've been playing in that Premiership level, so they're going to be huge for the season throughout. That they're going to bring a wealth of experience and are real sort of drivers in the standards of things. So exciting to see how they get back into their bigger jersey. We've brought Sean Johnson in, who's obviously somebody that I'd worked closely with when he was at Gala a many number of years ago. You know, Sean was just a youngster coming through there, so he's down with us now, which gives us a bit of size in our pack as well, and a real good understanding of our line out. So we're fairly sort of strong in the forwards wise. Obviously kept a hold of Scotty. He's going to have an hour season with us, and we're done fairly well to recruit those guys with the experience that they've got. We've got a young 10 that's come back in from Ayr after having a season through there, so we'll see how he fares. Gregor Lang, Gary Adams, who's going to be with us right from the start this season, which is going to be huge for us. Gary's went down a different path and doing obviously powerlifting and sort of strongman stuff, so he is very, very, very strong and looking really fit. So it's going to be exciting to see how he makes the transition to playing full-time prop, which is exciting to work with, and we're really sort of upskilling him just now to make that transition to be playing there full-time. So that'll be exciting to see how that develops. We've kept a hold of everybody that we wanted to keep a hold of, and obviously I think there'll be a couple of props that we're missing. That old Neil Hogarth has finally laid time to his boots. He's just hit 45 now, so he said his body's had enough now, and he's going to do a bit of coaching with Peebles, which is good for Neil to go into that next stage. Obviously he'll be a miss with a bit of experience, but again we've got some young props coming through that they're exciting for the club, and see how they get on throughout the season. No, all in all, I think as a club, we're in a fairly decent position. We just need to get off to a good start and carry on from where we left off towards the tail end of the season with some really good results in that tail end, and if we can get those results sort of towards the start of the season rather than starting halfway through the season, then it'll be exciting to see where we can actually get to.
Always good to hear from Craig Borthwick. Of course, we remember his days at Gala and various other clubs as well. He's going to take his Biggar team to Musselburgh for the first day of the season, and Stony Hill is quite a challenge.
Yeah, first day of the season, against a team that have come down from the division above, it's always going to be a challenge. Musselburgh, a bit like Marr, hard to tell how they're going to go, because they have lost, certainly a couple of players at Amway, Ross Brown and young Talek are away at Heriots, but they'll still have a decent core of guys that played at a higher level. And Biggar, the Stewart brothers have came back in there. That is a coup. If McClymont's going to lace them up again for Biggar, then it's a positive thing as well, absolutely. So Borth is right there. They finished the season strongly. Biggar, they really hit their straps, and Musselburgh, they got in a wee bit of a losing habit, if you want to call it that, last season. So I think Biggar might shade this one, Stuart.
Some result if they can pull that off at Musselburgh. The other match in National 1 is going to be fascinating. Favourites last year to get promotion, Stirling County. They go up against Boroughmuir, who came through on the rails to save themselves with 5 bonus point wins at the end of the season in their last 5 games, sending Peebles and Highland down. Stirling have got some big guns on board, of course, including WP Nell. But here's the thoughts of Director of Rugby at Boroughmuir. That's Neil Wood.
Big day for Boroughmuir on Saturday, and a big day up at Bridgehawk. Club really looking forward to it, with our under-16s and our under-18s playing the first game in the conference. Our first playing Stirling, and our second 15 playing Stirling seconds as well. So big day for Bridgehawk. It'll be a busy place. We've had a great pre-season. Been really good, refreshing. A new head coach in, Steve Leckie, kind of revitalised boys a bit, and a few new faces. A few old faces as well, so yeah, we're really looking forward to it. I'm sure Stirling, I've got everything prepared, and we'll be looking to get off to a flyer, and hopefully we can spoil their party a bit. But certainly looking forward to it. We've got nothing to lose, so we're looking forward to having a good battle up there, and hopefully come away with something.
Director of Rugby at Boroughmuir, Neil Wood, who's been there for a wee while now. Steve Leckie, the new head coach, as he said, for Boroughmuir, moving on from Falkirk, replacing Graham Shield, of course, who was in charge of Boroughmuir last season. And fair to say, a big challenge awaits the Megatland men up at Bridgehawk.
Yeah, you'd imagine this is the toughest challenge of the season for any team in the division, Stuart. Stirling, strong favourites to come up, given the personnel, likes and else come in there, good players coming through, always big lads as well. But they were absolutely off the board favourites for me, certainly last season, and they came unstuck on a couple of occasions there. So, the league looks a wee bit tougher, this division, this season, but yeah, still make them resounding favourites. And Boroughmuir, they, like Biggar, got themselves out of the hole that they found themselves in. They hit a bit of form at the right time. Jordan Edwards, we speak about him a lot on this show. He will do damage in that division, absolutely. By all accounts, a lot of young lads coming through from their unbelievably good youth section. It's a total conveyor belt. Tough assignment, Stirling to win, but Boroughmuir to be absolutely fine. No threat of relegation this season.
Into National 2 then, and a tasty match-up at Scremerston between Berwick and Falkirk. We can hear from Falkirk's new head coach, and that's Graham Simpson.
Yeah, the build-up to the season's been very good. With the state of Clubland Rugby at the minute, we were able to fulfil a couple of pre-season fixtures, which was pleasing, because I know it's been difficult for a lot of clubs, kind of up and down all the levels. So we were very thankful to DL and Straven for accommodating us, and we were able to get quite a lot of players blooded and get some minutes in the legs, so that's been great. Another bit of credit goes to the players, to be fair. Our training numbers have been really good. We kind of started a little bit later, and I've had a lot of detail to try and get through, so it's been really good of them to attend a lot of training and to be very coachable as a group, which has been fantastic, considering the change at head coach. They've been taking on the detail really well, and there's been a lot of repetition there with Stuart and Graham sticking on. So yeah, I think we've got the balance really good for the build up to date for Saturday coming. Really looking forward to the game. Really looking forward to going down to a very tough place to go and play rugby down in Berwick. They know their home ground very, very well, and they're very, very difficult to break down there. So we've got some challenges to face, the squad themselves, and obviously the slightly smaller pitch dimensions, things like that maybe don't quite play to our strengths. But the squad we've got going down, the 19 lads I'm sending down, are going to be more than capable of doing the job. So I'm looking forward to them seeing implementing what we've planned, and coming away with the results and get a really good start to the National League season. We're able to send 18 lads across to Kinross as well for the Caledonia League fixture. So, really positive start for Falkirk as a whole. We're hoping to come away with 2 results and really kick off this season.
Well, Berwick left it late to survive in National 2, but survive they did, and they'll be taking on a Falkirk side that's always in the mix.
Good club, Falkirk. Best time of the year for me to head down to Scrammerston. This is the time of year you want to be going. I'm looking at the fixtures this weekend, Stuart. I'm looking at the teams that are in this division. I can't even begin to think who's going to win this division, let alone these 5 fixtures this weekend. This division was brilliant last season. It was hard to predict a lot of the time who would beat who, and I see that being the same this season, struggling to pick winners. Looking at this particular game this weekend, I see the Berwick squad without the Thompson brothers that are back at Kelso. That's going to weaken them. It has to. So yeah, Falkirk, right time to be heading down there. Might just come away with the spoils.
Dundee versus Kirkcaldy is next up. 2 clubs who have been higher up in recent times find themselves in National 2 at the moment. Here's Kirkcaldy long-time boss Quinton Sanft.
Preparations at Kirkcaldy have been great, with 3 pre-season games against Preston Lodge, Aberdeen, and then finished off with Gordonians last week. So building up to Dundee has been good. Major losses for us this year. Gavin McKenzie, a lot of caps lost there through the years he's played, over 300 games for the club through retirement. Timmy Kennedy, who's one of our potent attackers. We're not sure when he's back with his knee surgery. And Sharon McCrovo, another back. So 3 backs through work. On the plus side, we recruited back 3 forwards, namely Michael Harper, who's come back from a long-term injury, and Harris McLeod, played for Glasgow and obviously under 20s of Scotland. And then we recruited back a 9 played a year out at Falkirk, has come back to the club, Aidan Reddick. So building up for a tough start of the league against Dundee, who through the years we've always played a pre-season game as a build-up for the season, but a nice toughie to start off the league, which will be a nice challenge to start. So hopefully we can come away with a W up in Dundee.
Former Samoan international, of course, Quinton Sanft. He's been part of the furniture at Kirkcaldy a long time.
Oh yeah, he was a good player in his day, I remember him as well. And yeah, what a great servant to the club. And this is a derby-ish, Fife and Tayside, obviously there's a wee bit of geography between them.
Caledonia derby,
that's what we'll call it, Caledonia derby. But Dundee have dropped down a division. Have they managed to maintain players that have all played at a high level, or have they lost a few? Home win in this one, Stuart, but the thing I'll predict about this division is I'm going to be made to look a mug making predictions about this division this season.
Well, we certainly look forward to that. Now, Highland dropped down last season into National 2 and start their campaign against newly promoted Howe of Fife at Canal Park, and I know Highland as a club will not like one little bit to be not among the top dogs in the area anymore, and they'll be doing all they can to get promoted back to the division again. So Highland v Howe of Fife.
Great place to go, I have to say, to go watch rugby. I'd be surprised if Highland weren't there or thereabouts. We know they've lost Stevie Murray, who's going to have a crack in the sort of twilight of his career. What a wonderful servant he was to Highland, over 300 games I believe, but he's going to be making the long trek to Selkirk to have a crack at the highest level in the club game. Howe of Fife, my word, they've produced some rugby pedigree over the years, Chris Fazaro, Pete Horn and George obviously, so they've produced a few players over the years. But yeah, Highland at home, probably see them winning a lot of home games this season up there, Stuart. Home win for me.
Newton Stewart escaped the drop last season, really suffered with injuries and the fact that a large part of their team are farmers, and that understandably comes before rugby matters. They begin this season with a home match against Stumel. We asked head coach Nick Lloyd to give us his take on matters before their opening match.
It seems that the Scottish club rugby is finding its equilibrium now, and the National 2 looks a really seriously strong league, and Stuart Smelville we believe would be one of the benchmarks teams, certainly from last season, and we'll likely have a very good idea of where we stand after this match. Our pre-season, by our standards, has been very positive. As any team with farm workers will know, rugby pre-season and farm work aren't really a marriage made in heaven. But our lads have done their utmost to get prepared. And as always, with Newton Stewart, we improve with time. We've had a good lead up with friendlies. Two very handy lower league teams in Drossen and Garnock we've played. We've been pleased with the progress, but you really just can't read too much into these results, although the processes have seemed very positive to us, but the real test starts this Saturday. Personnel-wise, we've got many of our injured players and absent players from last season back, which is, again, very positive. A couple of our long-term injured players, they're due back in the next few weeks. So that's, again, a very positive thing for us. We've still got a very young player base, so we're looking forward to seeing them develop as the season progresses. And as I said, we're really looking forward to a really tough physical match against Stewart's Melville on the weekend, and we'll certainly know where we stand after the match.
And so will Stewart's Melville, of course. It's a long old trek down to Newton Stewart, but Stu Mel were the runners-up last year.
They were, and all credit to them, because I wouldn't have predicted that at the start of last season. It's a fairly mammoth journey down there. Again, they get it over and done with early in the piece. Again, like going to Scramerson, probably the best time of year to head away down there. I think if Newton Stewart have got a few boys back, then they're going to be competitive like they were in the tail end of last season when they got some of these guys back, and we've seen guys from Newton Stewart that can do it at a high level, playing in a Glasgow jersey in the Inter-District Championship. So Stu Mel got some good players as well. I've always liked, the big captain in the middle row, Sword, he's a good player. So I think they got fairly, highly turned over by Edinburgh Accies pre-season, but it's pre-season, you don't read too much into that. But home advantage, I'm going to take Newton Stewart though.
And the other match in National 2 is relegated Peebles at home to GHK. And Peebles are sticking with their head coach, Graham Patterson.
Disappointment has been brushed aside, and we're looking ahead and being positive in what we're looking to achieve this season. And there's no bones about it. We're looking to achieve a promotion back into that National 1 level. How we go about that is very much about our hard work that we've put in during the pre-season, and then taking on these sides week on week. It's going to be difficult to know who's strong, who's not strong, because there's very little intelligence and information about all these sides. There's not a huge amount of videos shown in pre-season or anything like that, so you don't know what recruitment has been done up till now with these sides as well. So very much focused on our own performance and our own levels and where we're at, and that's what we'll be impressing upon the guys going out on Saturday is we just control what we can control, which is our own performance very much to the fore. In terms of GHK, you would think that a young, probably university, student-y type based team, I'd imagine they'll pose threats in terms of their pace of their game and playing out wide. But that's something that we want to do as well. So we're looking forward to a really good, open, expansive game. But also up our sleeve, we would like to think that we're pretty solid up front in terms of our set piece, both scrum and line out, and look to go to that when we need to, and use that as an attacking weapon as well as a defensive stopgap as well against their attacks. Lots of familiar faces, as you expect, not a huge amount of turnover, a few faces back, either from injury or in the case of our number one, Willie Napier, he's left the Navy and is settled back in Peebles full-time, so instead of having him on a case-by-case basis, it's very much full-time back in Peebles, which is great for us, hopefully great for him as well, which I'm sure it is. Pack-wise, settled side from a lot of the players from last season. Matty Carrier, Lewis Copeland, Finlay Collins, Ewan Murray, Calum McRobert returns to Peebles as well, having been away in America in university, so good to see him back. Rob Matthews and Cameron Pye. In terms of the backs, again, it's very similar. Max McKeever, Jack Harrison, captains aside from 10, James Hodgkiss and James Dowes in the centre, Davy Collins, Buster Davidson on the wing, and good to see Scott Stoddart back in the Peebles shirt, having had a long-term injury last season that kept him out pretty much the whole time. And from the bench, we're looking to inject a bit of young
blood, having come through the Colt system. Calum Grant and Sam Ferry, two young lads, have shown up really well in pre-season, and looking forward to see them make their senior debuts alongside Robbie Hardy and Rio Batia. So lots of youth exuberance to come off the bench, hopefully, to just inject that in the final stages of the game. Looking forward to a good win and set our stall out for the season and see if we can bounce straight back up into that National 1 level.
Of course, the big problem for Peebles last season was the fact they were doing really well against the top teams and pretty badly against the lower sides like Dundee. Losing at Dundee basically cost them.
You're right, the Dundee result was a bad one, but I think they can take great heart from how they performed against the teams, the teams towards the top end last season. A lot will come down to home form, and to be honest, I can see them winning an awful lot of their home games. And when Graham reels off the names there, Harrison, really good player, Napier coming back in, that helps. Matty Carrier going again, Cammy Pye being back around, that he's a solid campaigner. They've got the brilliant youth setup that is the conveyor belt or the talent. Most of the players in and around the Peebles first team squad on any given Saturday have come through the system. Stoddart's back in there as well, so yeah, home win for me this weekend, Stuart, and yeah, Peebles could be there or thereabouts come the top of the table, probably more dependent on away form rather than home form, because I see them winning an awful lot of home games.
And what about GHK?
GHK, looking at this division for me, are probably the biggest unknown quantity, because they could do a Stumel and be further up the table than you might think, or they could be relegation fodder. We'll know 6 games in.
So a full programme of club rugby tomorrow. Our commentary game on Rugby Radio will be Selkirk versus Watsonians from Philippock with Robin and Ian Hurd. Sam Matthews will be at Kelso v Hawick. Hugh Brown is at Rayburn Place covering the National 1 game between Edinburgh Accies and Gala. We're on air at 2:30 all the way through till 5, and then at 7 o'clock our new Rugby Roundup programme, where we bring you all the results and tables and news from the 15 games in the top 3 divisions, hearing from players and coaches. So make a note of that in your diary. Rugby Roundup will be on air at 7 tomorrow night.
The East League Roundup.
Now, for listeners in the borders, we bring you a look at the East Leagues involving local teams, and only one in action tomorrow. That's Langham. They'll be facing Ross High in East League 1. It's a 9-team league, which means one team has to sit it out each week. Next week it will be Langham's turn, but they will be desperate for a good start on the road under the captaincy once again of Chris Tate and the coaching eye of Craig Hislop, who we can hear from now.
This Saturday we kick off our league campaign up at Ross High. We had a decent pre-season. Our strength and conditioning coach Thomas Scott has got the boys in decent nick. And we've had 3 games. We played Annan, Hawick Quins and Selkirk on Friday night. Got a lot of the lads some decent game time, and they've been very worthwhile fixtures. In particular Friday night, a real fast-flowing game of rugby. So Saturday we're up at Ross High, as I say, a very tough place to go up at Trinent. Last season we started our campaign up there as well and managed to narrowly come away with a win, which we'd worked hard for in the second half. For those who have been here, I know it's on a hill, so it's a game of 2 halves literally. Squad-wise, pretty similar to last season. A few young boys joining the squad. Will Donaldson's back with us this season. Ellis Durham hopefully will be playing for us again this weekend, but he's carrying a wee niggle, so hopefully he pulls through. And just got one other's work commitment, so we're just waiting to hear back from. So yeah, fairly strong squad, so hopeful of a good season ahead. We can stay injury free because we're not the biggest of squads, so we'll see how it goes on Saturday.
Well, some good teams in East League 1, including the likes of Broughton, who won last season with 12 wins out of 14, and of course Haddington, who were a thorn in Langham's side last season. They finished second in the table with Langham in third, both winning 9 games, so they'll both be relishing meeting each other again this season. We'll have a longer edition of the East League Roundup next week when Divisions 2 and 3 begin. But that's it for today. Thanks much indeed for listening, and from Robin and myself, bye for now.